I just have 5 minutes to deliver the permanent secretary's paper, but I'll just summarize what I have here because I have gone through the paper before coming here. And if there is anything that is left out, I'm assuring you that the paper will be given to the organizers so that it can be displayed even in our email groups or WhatsApp. I just go straight, just as my colleague here that represented somebody, he said, if you hear I, it means it is the permanent secretary speaking. I read. Tourism is the largest and the fastest growing industry in the world today, which we all know. It is a major force in many economies, in one sector that has a global importance worldwide. In this era of globalization, change is constant, and tourism tends to improve the economy of countries with a positive impact upon the host community, international organizations, and of course, it promotes world peace, poverty alleviation, amongst others. Tourism is not a stand-alone industry. The tourism sector needs other sectors for it to flourish. And that is why this seminar is starting with the transportation subsector. And we are hoping that together we shall synergize to see how tourism will grow in using transport. The paper has to do with destinations. Tourism destinations in Nigeria are spread wide, and assessing them is quite a difficult situation. Like my brother from Nasarawa State, I'm part of the Nasarawa State. To assess our beautiful waterfall, that's the Faririwa waterfall in Nasarawa State, has become very difficult because of transportation. So transportation is the only accessible way that we can get to our destinations. Nigeria is blessed with numerous tourist destinations located in various vast land of our country. And most of us, we travel long distances to access them. However, such destinations are poorly provided with the means of transportation due to unfavorable physical environment, either caused by rain, our land formation, dense forest and vegetation, and even underdevelopment. We are calling here that improved transport facilities will give us more access to our destinations. And we're calling on the transport sector to synergize together with the tourism industry, both in the states and local government, where all these destinations are located, so that we can access them and tourists can come into the country. I don't need to give us the dominant types of tourism transportation system that we need, but I have tried to mention here that the air transportation is more international. The automobile, which is the dominant type of transportation in Nigeria, is the use of cars, private cars. The car is the prime form of family, visitors, and tourist transportation system in Nigeria because they are flexible, they are comfortable, and they are affordable. In short, distance Distances can easily be covered by our automobile transport system. We also have the railways. This type of railway, they are considered cheaper, faster, and easier, and carry a larger number of people, goods, and tourists. If these are improved, it will help opening up our destinations. We also have the sea transport that is fast growing, and we are hoping that with the presence of the Maritime Authority, we will synergize to see how Nigeria can benefit so that our tourist destinations are brought closer to us, and they are all open up to encourage domestic tourism in Nigeria. I hope that I have done justice to the Permanent Secretary's paper, and I pray that the whole write-up will be given to the organizers. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. I'd like to call on our next speaker, Mr. Sam Agbi, JP, Director of Performing Arts, representing Otumba Olusegun. He'll be speaking on the topic, the National Festival of Arts and Culture as a veritable platform for the promotion of creativity and cultural identity.
5 minutes. Distinguished guests, permit me to stand on existing protocol. I also be asked to speak for 5 minutes, and the topic is National Festival of Arts and Culture as a veritable platform for the promotion of creativity and cultural identity. I here represent the DG of National Council for Arts and Culture, Otumba Olusegun Oreshenwe, OON, who is unavoidably absent. He sent his greeting and also wants me to thank the organizer for looking at this synergy that had hitherto inhibits the flourishing of both domestic or international tourism. He's particularly delighted because he sees this as an honor, having been in the tourism industry and now as a director of National Council for Arts and Culture, which of course is also the culture arm of the tourism industry. So on behalf of the DG, I like to make this few presentation, just like my Honorable Pamsek has said. We have 2 versions of the presentation. We have the PowerPoint and we have the prose, which of course will be a very useful material for our distinguished guests. Briefly, since I have just 5 minutes to speak, my first approach was to define what is National Council for Arts and Culture, and we have been able to mention in our presentation that it actually started in 1970 as a way of unifying Nigeria after the Civil War. And that is why we call it the Unity Festival. In the paper too, we have been able to establish that NAFES is actually yearning for marketing. We did not pretend to say that NAFES has its own limitation, despite the fact that NAFES is actually one of the people-oriented festival because it involved the entirety of the nation, both from the planning to the execution. We have been able to define what was creativity. That creativity is the engine that actually drives the new economy, and it has to do with the innate of man's capacity to reinvent an event. We have also gone to tell you what is cultural identity. Just like the aviation chairman said, he actually mentioned that it is the low-hanging fruit. Culture, festival, remain the low-hanging fruit for tourism. There is no point going outside the shore of Nigeria looking for what to market, where you have your cultural value as what you can market. Because those are the things that actually make the tourists come. Come tourists, come money. They are dazzled. They want to see how do you do this talking drum. They want to look at the magic, what is in it. There are all forms of tourism, but I think cultural tourism remains one of the areas this country needs to pay much attention, because perhaps that is where we have a comparative advantage. I don't know what that is seaport or these beaches that you cannot find the shores of Bahamas and other parts of the world. They are all okay, but I think we need to pay attention to festival, because we know festival is one of the very things that attract both international and domestic tourism. In the paper, we also been able to show you how NAFES actually impacts on tourism. One quick point was that it boosts domestic and rural economy. That I have just explained. When you are going to have a presentation, the presentation by state does not just come from that state capital. It goes down to the village to get the best drummer, to get the best artist, to get the best cover. If that is done, you know how much money will go down. Look at even the participants. An average of over 5,000 to 6,000 contingent, that is organized contingent, move from one place to where the festival is being held. It means that the economy of that place is boosted, from the pure water to the recharge cellar to internal movement and all that. And we move on to see that that even the NAFES is having challenges. A lot of us have spoken on transport, so I want to really delve on transport. There are many cases people will be moving from their destination, they will have an accident. In NAFES, when you have in Abuja, the Bayelsa contingent, with due respect, mentioning them specifically, they were robbed at Gwagwalada, and that most of them, they could not participate in that event. Last year, even in Kaduna, the Ogun State contingent also had the same experience. They were also robbed. So you can see that there's a lot of synergy between this transport and tourism, and even road transport in particular. The air transport is also very expensive. How many artists? So also is the accommodation. There's no bread and breakfast in most of Nigerian hotels here. How many states can indeed put their artists in a good accommodation? These are some of the challenges that affect events like NAFES. On the whole, by rounding up, is that NAFES is actually a very stable platform that, if it's funded, supported, and even the private sector commit to it, it will be a very way not only to market our tourism potential, but also a way of providing funds and creating employment for the vast majority of Nigerians. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you very much, sir. Our next speaker will be speaking on marketing destination Nigeria, the role of transportation sector, is Dr. Mrs. Grace Geraldine Okudo. And this is a brief citation. Okay, my apologies, please. We'll just skip to a brief presentation by Mrs. Chika Balogun, DG Naihoto. Ma'am, please.
Yes. Okay. Good afternoon to the panelists on the rostrum here, and a very warm welcome to all our guests who have come in from outside of Abuja, and to those of us who reside here, a very warm good afternoon. I've been told I have 5 minutes. I want to do a complete radical departure from what has been going on. It's supposed to be a panelist discussion, so the panelists are supposed to be part of that conversation, and the audience is also supposed to be part of this conversation, because we have at least 90% of people here who are professionals in both industries. So it will be a shame to have all of us come and speak to you for things that you're probably even more knowledgeable about. So I'll run mine slightly differently. The topic I've been given is building capacity for global best practices in the tourism and transportation sectors. My name is Chika Balogun. I'm the Director General for the National Institute for Hospitality and Tourism. It's the federal government's apex training institute within the hospitality, travel, and tourism industry. We also the Sector Skills Council for hospitality, travel, and tourism trades in Nigeria. I'll just give a preamble of the tourism industry, as I'm sure all of us know. The tourism industry has been recognized and accepted as the fastest growing sector of the global economy. The UNWTO report for 2017 on tourism trends has international tourism arrivals with a growth rate of 77%, which is the highest in the last 7 years. And it has 1.4 billion people recorded as traveling from point A to B across the globe. This figure is set to rise for 2018 and subsequently. The trend in Nigeria. Nigeria has had an international tourist arrival of about 1.88 million in 2017 as against 1.25 million in 2016. These are international arrivals, but we have 90% of the tourism receipts as domestic tourism receipts in Nigeria. This is where tourism and transportation get to marry each other. All the figures we've given, 1-point-something billion as global figures, 1.8 million as international arrivals into Nigeria, and maybe another 5 million of us traveling around Nigeria annually, don't move by feet. We have to go by sea, by air, or in a car, or very recently, rail transportation. It therefore means that tourism and transportation are Siamese twins. Tourism is the simple movement of people to destinations outside of their normal places of work and residence for 48 hours. The journey from your house to Abuja. For this seminar, if you're here for 48 hours, you are officially a tourist, as I'm sure you know. But you didn't get here flying the broom. You got here by air or by road or maybe by rail if you came from Kaduna. Therefore, transportation is the very wing upon which tourism thrives. In the course of meeting the demands of the tourism industry, the effective activities of the transport sector brings about an increased demand for tourism activities and related matters. If tourism has to do well, then transportation has to do well. Human capital development is the activity of training and developing human beings to acquire the right skills and knowledge to undertake a task with perfection and with quality assurance built in. One of the challenges related to human resource development in the hospitality and tourism industry remains how to forecast future skills demand to meet the changing needs of this growing economic sector. This will be achieved only through research, surveys, accurate data by appropriate public and private sector institutions, and all of us making a conscious determination to realize that we're only as good as the training we have acquired. To develop tourism capacity, training in the industry was established by the UNWTO many, many years ago, on the principles of matching the skills offered during the educational process to the real expectations and needs of demand, both external and internal consumers. It also emphasizes offering the tourism service just in time. What it means by that is that the right training for the right moment, given a bit too early or too late, can also produce negative results. In Nigeria, part of the issues that we face is the fact that the practitioners or the business owners, especially the hoteliers, find it a little bit difficult to pay for the training for their staff. On the flip side, there is a very, very, very high turnover of staff as well, especially from the middle cadre going down to the lower cadre. So it's a catch-22 situation. Do you force employers of labor to train people who are going to leave 2 days after they're trained? Or do you force the employers not to employ people who are not trained? I would go for the second option. But so that it's not coming from only myself, I'd like to leave the floor open to the MD of the Transcorp Hilton, Mr. Val Ozibo, to give us a few comments on capacity building within the tourism industry. Okay.
Thank you very much, DG. So, talking about capacity building, I'm trying to find the right word to underscore the importance of this issue because it is everything in tourism. The human part, the personal touch, the attitude, the character that we bring to tourism is the single most important product that we sell because we function in a service industry. So it's all about the level of attention, the personalization or customization, and just making sure that you anticipate the needs of your guests before they even demand. And therefore, to get this right, we spend everything possible to make sure we capacitize our team members. That is why from the gate entrance to the security personnel you're going to see, to the concierge, down to of course, the professional areas, the kitchen, the housekeeping, and all of that. And we don't do this for ourselves alone. We also carry out a lot of CSR in this regard. We actually get people from around the country, put them in our own training environment, get them trained, pick a few of them, offer them full employment, and then the others we send back to the market so that they can support other parts of products and hotels and allied services within the industry. So, when people walk into Transcorp Hilton, they see a lot of upgrade going on. We actually invested more in our human resource long before we started the fiscal upgrade because we prioritized. We understood that if you have a world-class infrastructure and a very poor attitude from your team members, you failed. People just come there and see a flash in the pan and they feel that, of course, repeat business won't be possible. So I want to, there's one thing I want to say because I know we don't have much time. When we are building hotels, when we're building any infrastructure, we spend, in some cases, 7 years, 6 years, 5 years to develop this infrastructure, from the design, conceptualization, down to the delivery. But when we want to hire people, we hire them a month before you commence. That's actually very wrong. You're supposed to hire people long enough, go through orientation, let them understand your culture, your way of life, how you want them to behave, so that the moment you open your doors to customers, they get it right at once. A lot of times we miss this point and we only begin to troubleshoot. Issues will begin to happen and we'll start to look for how to manage those issues. So I want to again emphasize the importance of capacity building, which is why I appreciate our DG in what they're doing at Nehotor. It's a very important aspect of the tourism development, because when you get the human aspect right, even if your product is poor quality, people will appreciate the value. That's why people will go to a booker, a joint that may even be ostensibly not so good, and yet they eat, because the quality of people they meet can serve the purpose. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We don't seem to have a lot of time, so I'm just going to go straight to recommendations. No, my conclusion first. Capacity building for the tourism and transport sectors is very critical in the development of any tourism destination. And we're talking